What is up, YouTube? It is Docky or Docky Style Gaming, and you already know I'm back at it again with another Godfall video for you all today. Now, this video we are going to be covering the second part of that gamebyte interview. Technically, it was the first part because I did it out of order, but we're going to be covering the rest of that gamebyte interview with the technical producer that went over a bit of the gameplay, some story and lore, and the difficulty of the game. Now, there was a couple other things that they touched on, like the DualSense controller, some different game comparisons, and just the experience working on a new IP, but I'll let y'all read that if y'all want to. I'll leave a link to the full interview in the video description. This, I'm just going to be covering the main key aspects of that interview, which was the gameplay combat mechanics, the story and the lore, and then the difficulty as well. So, like I always say, without further ado and wasting any more time, let's hop straight into this interview. So, starting with the gameplay, combat, and mechanics side of things, they started with the side missions, which I did mention in my last video, so if you want to check that out, go check out that in-game video where I broke down all things in-game in Godfall. But after that, they went to break down the different weapon classes. Of course, there's the long swords, the great swords, polearm, warhammers, and the dual blades. They said all of them have light and heavy attacks that can be used to pull off combos with the same weapons or by switching weapons as well. Now, the technical producer did also say that they do encourage players to swap between weapons, and they said a good example of this can be found in their skill grid. Now, the way that the weapon nodes work on the skill grid is you unlock weapon techniques for all 5 of your classes and not just one in particular. So you don't necessarily have to be a one-trick pony, pretty much was what they were trying to get at. And then they also said that polarity attacks also encourage switching between different weapon classes and your loadouts. Now, they've covered polarity attacks before, but essentially what it is the more you use one weapon, you start to build up a charge, and by swapping to the next weapon, you'll essentially unleash this huge AoE, though I'll probably get more into that in a separate combat-related video, though. Now, switching over to the story and lore side of things, this is where we got a bunch of new information as well. Now, they said that throughout the campaign, Orin will travel through the earth, water, and air realms to take down the Mad King Macros. Godfall's campaign is meant to feel like an ascension as players climb through the elemental realms. The realms are typically controlled by particular factions of enemies that all have sworn an allegiance to Macros. And an example they gave said that Vargul controls the earth realm. And then they also said that some factions can move freely between each realm. And now when going into the individual realms, they did say that each realm is unique and sets its own tone, and all the realms exist within the Skybreakers monolith. And they refer to the Skybreakers monolith as the most glorious creation of the Valorian people. They also said that it can reach through time and space and bend reality. And if you caught one of my previous videos, I also did mention space-time as well, so maybe it might play a factor into this game after all. Now, they went on to talk about the Skybreaker monolith by saying that within the massive structure is an almost infinite world of layered elemental realms speared through by a central tower. And they said at the apex of this tower lies the throne room of the Mad King Macros. The players will need to ascend these realms in order to ultimately face Macros, and then ended it by saying that once the players gain access to the elemental realms, they will start at the base of the monolith in the earth realm. And if you happen to be an eagle-eyed viewer during the cinematic trailer, we actually got to see Orin messing around with one of the consoles where we got to see a diagram of all of the realms above each other, essentially. And two things that I did want to take note of from this new story and lore details we got was that they said we're going to be playing as Orin, which is officially the first time that it's been confirmed. Originally, I thought we might be playing with our own character, but it seems like we'll be playing as Orin and we'll be obtaining Valorplate through him. But also they said that through the campaign, we'll travel through the earth, water, and air realms. Now, for those of you who have been watching a lot of my videos, you know that there's 5 realms. There's earth, water, air, fire, and spirit. Now, we've seen all of them. We've seen earth, we've seen air, we've seen water, and we've definitely seen fire multiple times. So it's interesting that fire wasn't mentioned when going through the realms in the campaign. So is fire potentially going to be an in-game type of realm or a separate realm on its own that has its own type of activities? I'm very curious to figure that out. And again, we still have no mention of the spirit realm ever since it was mentioned about twice, like months ago. So again, they're still being very hush-hush on the spirit realm. And also, they did refer to Macros this time now as the Mad King. Now, in all the press statements and all of the past interviews, he was referred to as the Mad God Macros. And in one of my most recent videos where I broke down the Japanese footage, we did get to hear the dialogue where Oren said that Macros is trying to become a god, and by doing so, it will cause about the apocalypse. I just thought it was a bit interesting that they ultimately changed it to Mad King instead of Mad God, but ultimately Macros is still playing the same role. Though every time I keep hearing Mad King or Mad God, I just think of the God King from Infinity Blade, whose books were actually wrote by Brandon Sanderson, and the team at Counterplay Games did say that Brandon Sanderson's fantasy work did inspire a bit of the world of Godfall. So some of the coincidences might be intentional. Plus, I just really love Infinity Blade, so anything that even feels like that game, I'm all over. Now, the last bit of info that they talked about briefly was the difficulty. Now, in the interview, they were making comparisons, and they kind of compared it to Dark Souls, and was asked if it would be more difficult than Dark Souls, and the technical producer replied, the simple answer is, it depends on the difficulty you select. He then went on to say that Godfall will have various difficulty levels that should satisfy veteran and newcomers alike. So that's the first we've heard of an actual difficulty level that you'll be able to adjust and pick in the game. And for those of you potentially wondering what's going on with the AI, let's just assume that they were playing on easy difficulty, even though most of the footage we've seen has been from the tutorial gameplay anyway, so it might just be that too, but I think I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's hope that it was just on easy. So that's pretty much the gist of that interview. Like I said, there is a bit more stuff that they went into for sure, and I'll leave a link to the full interview in the video description if you want to check that out. But before I go, let me know in the comment section what you personally thought of some of that story details. If you think the Fire Realm, since they left it out, might actually be an in-game realm or an in-game activity that might have some other stuff for us to do as well. And what difficulty you'll be playing Godfall on when it launches. So with that, I'm going to end the video. Thank you all for watching, and like always, links to all my social media accounts are in the video description. I will catch you all on the next one. Thanks for the love. Thanks for the subs. Peace.